Welcome to another episode of What's Up with DJ, and I'm your host, DJ. Each week, I bring you topics about current events and career development, finance, holistic living, life hacks, and stories of inspiration and humor, all from a spiritual perspective. So be sure to subscribe, follow, like, comment, and leave a review on Apple Podcast. And you can also subscribe at DLLOYD jr.com/subscribe. Again, that's DLLOYDJR.com/subscribe. Your thoughts, opinions, and comments are always encouraged and appreciated. With that being said, let's get right into the show. My guest this week is Jason Harwood. He's a speaker, coach, and family man. Jason has a Bachelor's of Arts in Marketing and a Master's degree in Education from BYU. He is also the host of the podcast Happily Ever Habits. He resides in Idaho with his wife, 7 kids, and 1 puppy. Life has taught him to grow and focus on enjoying the moments of life rather than worrying about what might happen or stressing about what has happened in the past. Jason believes it's time to stop grinding to do more and start focusing on the habits to do better. Life is happier when we live better. Over the last decade, Jason has helped thousands of people identify and create the habits that will make the most significant difference in their lives by sharing tips on consistently doing the things that will help to make you happier. Whether it is business success, personal success, organizational success, from stay at home moms to CEOs, he helps people find greater happiness in their lives and businesses. He stays very, very busy. I can only imagine with,
Uh,
7 kids.
whew.
And he says he loves every minute of it. Thank you for joining me this week.
Yeah, most minutes, DJ. Yeah,
Most minutes. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
quite sure there's a few times where you're like, this is a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah, I always tell people we didn't have 8 kids because 8 kids is a lot. So we stopped at seven. Seven seemed reasonable. I don't
Yeah,
know.
8 would be the straw that broke the camel's back,
Yes.
huh?
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
So, what is it like there in Idaho? Because I never have visited Idaho. I
Oh,
don't know much about it.
yeah. People who visit here, I mean, we got mountains, so that's nice. I've lived here my
Hmm.
whole life, so to me, mountains is just like normal. But when people come here, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love the mountains." And
Hmm.
Boise is a really outdoorsy town. Not far from here is Sun Valley. That's kind of a famous place. A lot of Hollywood stars, Bruce Willis and Tony Robbins has a place up in Sun Valley.
Oh
It's
wow.
kind of a mountain ski resort, kind of type town. So lots of outdoor stuff. Some of the best fishing in the country, some of the best
Hmm.
whitewater rafting anywhere in the country. We have some really famous, if you're like deep into kayaking and whitewater rafting, Idaho has
Okay.
some of the best in the world. So, yeah, outdoors, hiking, fishing, hunting, mountains, lakes, that type of that's the vibe here in Idaho.
Oh, cool, cool, cool. Well,
Yeah,
I definitely didn't know there was mountains in Idaho. Definitely not in Boise.
yeah,
So if I am interested in doing some, I guess some skiing, maybe
yeah.
that's a
You got
good
skiing.
place to go.
The other side of the state. So I'm on the westernmost side of the state. The other side
Mm.
is right up in the corner there by Yellowstone, uh,
Oh, okay, wow,
Jackson
okay. I heard of
Hole,
that.
Grand Tetons. So yeah, and that's the other thing is it's a huge state. I mean, it takes you a good 7 hours to drive east to west and like 10 hours to drive north to south because you end up by Coeur d'Alene right next to the Canada border. So yeah, we're
Wow.
all over the
Okay.
place here in Idaho.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So you had mentioned earlier that you have two kids that they're now in basketball. Are there two of your sons?
Yeah, two sons in basketball, a daughter in softball. Three sons play basketball. One is not currently playing. He just ended kind of a competition league that he plays in. So usually we got three basketball, a softball. My older son played baseball all through high school. He's now graduated high school. My daughter's
How
into,
old is he? He's
he's
like
19.
18, 19.
19.
Okay.
Yeah. My daughter does swimming, and then she's big into like choir and that scene. And then my youngest daughter loves soccer, and she's 8, so we go from 8 all the way up to 19.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
we're
Okay.
always doing something. There's always some event. Every week is like a major planning session to say who's going where, what meeting, and this tonight we got this, and tomorrow night we got that, and there's almost never a night where we don't have something going on for someone.
Going on.
So
Yeah,
that
I can
keeps us
imagine.
super busy.
Yeah, I complain about my cat, wanting too much attention. And then, you know, I
Uh,
have no complaints when it comes to comparing my life to
but it's all
yours.
good. It's I mean, yeah, uh keeps us from getting bored, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, but I guess it's gonna be very rewarding. I think children are the gift that keeps on giving. So, this is, you know,
If yeah, because growth and development come through discomfort and challenge, then kids are the gift. That's a crazy thing, is like my son, he graduated from high school. He had his whole set of difficulties and challenges that he presented.
hmm
And then
hmm
I've got three more kids in high school right now. Every single one of them is a different series of just kind of the way they view the world, the joy that they
right?
bring, the challenges, the struggles that they go through. And so there's not a whole lot that I learned from my oldest son that like directly applies, other than calm down, talk through
hmm
it, everything's going to
hmm
work out. But yeah, every kid brings a whole new set of challenges and perspectives and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty interesting because sometimes I had a thought of, well, you sort of kind of work the hardest on the first one, and then then
Yeah.
then sort of kind of you can do like, okay, well, we got that figured out with the first one, so maybe then there's the twist,
Yeah.
with the second one,
Yeah.
and then the twist with the third one, you
Yes.
know. So
Everyone is different.
everyone is different. So your podcast, so can you tell me a bit more about your podcast, Happily Ever Habits, and
Yeah.
why did you decide to name it Happily
Yeah.
Ever
So,
Habits?
well, I mean, the naming is really a play off of happily ever after, because
Uh-huh.
we're all striving for that. We're all kind of striving for our own happily ever after, and for happiness in life. And research shows that like 40 to 60% of our lives is made up of habits or more for some people. And
hmm
so, if what you're really striving for is happily ever after, to find happiness in life, to find happiness in your day to day endeavors, it's most often to be found in finding happiness in your habits. And kind of what I had gone through in terms of my mental approach and process was, it seemed like I was always kind of grinding for more. As we kind of grow up and
hmm
start life, we most often start comparing ourselves with others, and we start looking what other people have, and we
hmm
compare that to what we have, and we start
Yeah.
grinding. And kind of the mental framework of America, it seems, is grinding for more, and we want bigger, and we want better, and we want
Yeah.
this, and we strive for more and more and more, and we grind and grind. And what I found as I continued to work through that process was, it wasn't getting me to a place where I was any happier. I wasn't
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling happier. I wasn't um, engaging in ways that I wanted to. I wasn't living out what I thought was my happiest and best version of myself. And I thought, man, something really has to change here. And if something has to change, I have to start with my habits. I've got to start changing my daily habits. And so
Mm-hmm.
I identified for myself seven core character traits, seven core values that I really wanted to focus on in my life in an effort to increase my own personal happiness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I took principles that I've learned from habit development books like um, Atomic Habits by James Clear and Tiny Habits by VJ Fogg and The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. And I said, can I use those same habit forming tactics to increase in areas like personal integrity, personal belief, knowledge, self control, gratitude, charity, and humility,
Mm-hmm.
and create greater happiness in my life through habits that grew me as a person, not just, it's good to eat healthy, it's good to exercise, it's good to, uh, you know,
So what are those
have,
seven habits? What are those seven habits that you said there were seven habits
yeah.
that you focused
So,
on?
so my seven core kind of character traits that I'm striving to develop are personal belief, personal integrity, knowledge, self control, gratitude, charity, and humility.
Okay.
And for each of those, I have a daily or a weekly habit that I focus on um, that kind of helps me feel like I'm growing in that area.
Okay. Okay. And so one question I definitely wanted to ask you because a man with seven kids and one puppy and a wife, how do you uh remain present? What habit do you use to remain present to each one of those individuals when they're all maybe at certain different times competing for your attention?
Yeah, yeah. I'll share a couple. One is a tactic that I learned actually from a different habit book. Although I don't know, and they don't really seem like habits, but it's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Yeah, Stephen Covey. Yeah,
He
great book.
has a way to approach your life that's really helped me, and they call it, and Covey calls it roles and goals. And so he encourages, and this is what I try to follow on a weekly basis, to write down every role that I have. So I'm a husband, and then
Hmm.
I'm a father to seven kids. So I write down each of my seven kids. I also have a full time job, so I'm an employee, and I try to serve in my church and community, and so I have those roles. And then I try to write down one goal for each of those roles, one thing that I want to do that week. So I kind of think, I go through each of my kids and I think, what's the one thing I could do for each one of them this week that would kind of put a little bit of emphasis on them, and they know that they're not just one of seven, but that I'm paying particular
Hmm.
attention to them. And of course I do the same thing for my wife, and we try to have a weekly date so that she and I have some one-on-one alone time together without any kids around, but then I look for other ways. So that's one thing. Roles and goals. Write down the roles that you have in your life and one goal that you want to focus on for each of those areas. Another simple thing that I do to try to stay present is I try to have some like it's funny because we talk about it with our kids all the time. We tell our kids this for the next hour, no screen time, meaning they can't look at their phones, they can't play PlayStation, they can't get on a laptop, and yet as adults we very rarely give ourselves that same directive. So for me,
Hmm.
especially when I feel myself kind of slipping on it, I'll just take my phone, I'll go plug it in, charge it, set it on my desk at home, and just
Hmm.
walk away from my phone. Because I find for me, the thing that pulls me from being present most frequently is is my phone because I'm checking
Hmm.
some dumb app. I'm looking at some email that's just come through. I'm
Yeah.
distracted by some notification. So if I can identify the number one distractor and change my environment, right? We think, oh, I'll just put my phone in my pocket and I won't pay attention to it. And that's
No, that
I've
doesn't
nope,
work.
it's not going to work. Yeah, I have to I have to change the environment more drastically. I have to plug it in because let it charge, whatever, that's fine, and then put it in my office, and then I shut the door to my office and walk out because it's too convenient to go look at it. It's too easy
Right.
to get sucked into it. And so
Hmm.
whatever it is that's distracting you from the thing you really want to focus on, or the goal that you really want to achieve. It's interesting. James Clear, I was so amazed by this because here's a guy who wrote best-selling book. He uh successful speaker. And so you look at a person like that, you think, man, that guy really has it together. And then he
Hmm.
tells the story that his assistant has a task every Monday morning, and that is to change all of his social media passwords. And then every
Wow.
Friday evening, she gives him the password. So he only has the password to his own social media accounts from Friday evening until Monday morning when she changes them again. So that Monday through Friday, he has no access. He logs himself out of Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, logs himself
Hmm.
out Monday morning, doesn't know the password to log back in until she gives it to him Friday afternoon. And I
Wow.
thought, my gosh, a guy that successful has to take that drastic a measure to avoid
Hmm.
distraction. And then I think, I wonder if it's that level of focus and commitment to focus
Hmm.
that leads him to be so successful. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
for us our
Focus is,
unwillingness to take the drastic action necessary to focus that might limit us. So
yeah, the
I do roles
drastic
and
action.
goals, and then I try to plug my phone in and walk away from it to
Yeah,
try to
that's
stay a bit
to,
more present.
do you think what's so, I like when you said that, are you willing to take the drastic actions going to, make you successful? What do you think has been your one of the most difficult obstacle to success or to, I mean, I'm assuming that you still have goals in life, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say your most difficult because you, right, you may even gotten to your most difficult or in to resolve it. But what is a difficult obstacle that's been in the way, and how did, your creating a habit, or which habit did you, or which core habit did you utilize to remove or minimize that obstacle?
Yeah. I think as I've been blessed in my life to work with really successful people, and then I've tried to evaluate how I can improve my own effectiveness. It's strange. The thing that makes the difference is consistency.
Consistency.
Um, because nothing really spectacular or amazing or life changing really happens in kind of a one time event. I mean, maybe
Mm-hmm.
like a medical thing, right? That has a you get a medical situation, and it has a life changing impact. But when we look at just kind of growth and um, effectiveness and success, it's the byproduct of long term consistency. And so,
Mm-hmm.
where I have looked back on my life and been, I don't want to say disappointed, but where I have seen myself not achieve the level of success that I wanted to in that time, it was most often because I would start something and not stay disciplined and consistent with it. It's just showing up consistently
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
something really small. And that's one of the keys to habits, is the keys to one of the most significant keys to habits is to start smaller, much, much,
Hmm.
much, much smaller.
Hmm.
And again, it doesn't seem to be a real American framework of thought
Yeah.
to
Go big
start
or go
small.
home, right? That's what we
Yeah,
always say, right?
I know. Yeah, we want big. You Google search or you do a YouTube search for like the smallest NFL hits of the year. You won't find anything.
No, you're not.
But you look for the biggest NFL hits and
Oh
you'll
yeah.
find dozens of videos because we want big, we want home runs. We don't, I mean, there's no video of, and I mean, we
Hmm.
know, and there's
Let's show.
controversy
Let's
around, yeah,
yeah.
who's the
Let's show our
home run king?
mediocrity.
Yeah, right. Is it Hank Aaron? Is it Barry Bonds? Right. We have these arguments about who leads the league in bunts every year. Nobody could even come up with it, right? But
Yeah.
when we go big, the problem is when we go big, we're basing our success off of motivation, because
Hmm.
to do something big, you have to be motivated, and motivation
Hmm.
is one of the least predictable human characteristics. When we start small, we can rely on consistency, and humans are actually remarkably good at consistency. Um,
Okay. Okay. Because the rumor is that humans are very bad at
we think
consistency.
so. We think so. Doing something new, it and getting into a new consistent pattern is the challenge. But we're actually
Hmm.
quite remarkable at I mean, you just look at your life, right? Like I, you know, I mean, my travel, the roads that I drive on are amazingly consistent. The
Hmm.
pattern of my life is almost 90%. If you look from one week to the next week to the next week to the next week, it's like 75% consistent. Like I
Hmm.
eat the same foods, I
Yeah.
do the same job, I drive the same
Hmm.
roads, I wear the same
Hmm.
clothes. I've done my hair the same way, DJ, for like, I don't know, a decade. And
Okay.
then it's only like 10% different from how I used to do it before. Like I I watch the same TV shows. I spend about the same amount of time in work and sleep and exercise. I've weighed about the same. I'm within 10 or 15 pounds of how much I have weighed for the
God bless
past.
you, man. This COVID is. I got the COVID pounds.
Yeah, yeah, I upped it. I'm at the upper end, right? But so we're actually quite good at consistency. It's changing that's hard.
Hmm.
It's because it's the reason it's hard is because it's different. And so anytime we start to try to make a change, we're actually working against our overriding. I always joke around with people. There's a I don't know whether it's Disney or what, but there's a movie called Crudes,
Okay.
and it's about these cavemen, and that the dad always change is bad because anything different could kill you, and it's part of biology that once we know something won't kill us, we kind of keep doing it
Hmm.
because biologically, anything new could kill you.
Right.
You know, a few thousand years ago, when humans were running around, right? You ate the same things because you knew it wouldn't kill you. You lived in the same place because you knew you wouldn't die there.
Hmm.
Something new
Yeah.
came along, it was almost always bad. And so I think our
Hmm.
brains are wired to resist change and to
Hmm.
embrace consistency. So start small, and you kind of convince your brain like this isn't going to kill you, and
Hmm.
then grow gradually. And it's
Hmm.
not fun, but I love the phrase. I can't remember who first said it, but the phrase I've heard it a few times of people saying, I it took me 10 years to become an overnight success, because we think it's going to happen like just that fast, right? Just all of a sudden
Yeah.
you're going to be
Hmm.
ultra successful. No, it's going
Right.
to be starting
Hmm.
small, growing gradually, and being consistent, and
Yeah. Consistent.
identifying the habits of saying, these are the things I want to have done for 20 years, 20 years from now.
Yeah, yeah. So, cause you talk about tiny habits a lot, and you mentioned about these tiny goals or tiny habits.
Yeah.
How can, because in American culture, it's about going big, lofty goals, and if you're not,
Yeah.
then you sort of have committed to mediocrity, the crime
Yeah.
of mediocrity. So, why should we strive for tiny goals when we're told to that we should be going after the lofty goals?
Yeah. And maybe the difference is the difference between a lofty goal and a smaller habit. Right. So I've got some big
Okay,
goals in my
explain
life.
that. Yeah.
So I've got some big goals in my life, but for me, my goals are not something I do every day. My habits are something that I do every day. My goal is the end result of the next 3 years of my habit.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, an easy example might be running a marathon. I one time decided, okay, I'm going to run a marathon. My goal
Okay.
was to run a marathon. I only ever ran 26.2 miles one time, the day, the day of the marathon. I
Okay.
worked up to it. My habit was running 4 times a week for the 6 months leading up to it and gradually increasing both the total distance and my long run distance. So I went from my long run being 5 miles to 8 miles to 9 miles to 10 to 12 to 13. And eventually I got up to my longest pre race run was 20 miles. Um, and so that was the habit. The goal
So
was run
running the
26.2.
small running, the tiny habit was getting up every morning or
Yep.
whatever time you was gonna do your run. 4 miles, or with me it would have been probably a half a mile.
Yeah.
Starting out
Yeah.
small, and even though you are increasing that distance, is still not 26 miles.
Yes.
But you're still doing tiny goals to ultimately get to that big lofty goal of a
Yeah.
26-mile marathon. I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you want to be, you may have a goal, for example, of the number of listeners that you want and the reach that you want for your podcast.
Hmm.
And so the habit is the consistency of creating, um, posting, marketing, sharing, right? It's all the behind the scenes
Hmm.
stuff that's not as like,
Glamorous.
yeah, yeah, and fewer people want to do it, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's why fewer people, do those things. Is it's all the behind the scenes stuff that you're like, man, that
Hmm.
stuff is not as fun. And
Yeah.
so no matter what it is, um, you you do. I mean, I encourage people, yeah, set big goals, set lofty visions for your life, and then say, okay, if I want to accomplish that, what's the smallest thing I can start with? What
Mm.
break it down to the smallest possible daily action. And the reality is we can't then stay at the smallest possible action, but we build up to it. Like
Yeah.
running is an easy analogy. I The longest prep run I did was 20 miles. When I first started, and the longest I had ever run was 3 miles. If you had said, hey, I want you to go out and run 20 miles, I mean, I could have maybe walked 20 miles, but I was never, ever, ever going to be able to run 20 miles
Hmm.
until I built up to it. And so it's just the
Hmm.
habit of 4 times a week putting on my running clothes, putting on my running shoes, um, getting my water bottles and heading out. So the same thing is true for success in any endeavor.
Hmm.
Is you say, okay, I'm going to start small and build up from there. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, start small with with lofty kind of maybe long-term expectations. I do think it might have been Tony Robbins who said that we often um, overestimate what we can do or kind of, yeah, overestimate what we want to do in a year and maybe underestimate what we can do in a week, right? And
Yeah.
so we have these big goals and we think, okay, I can do all of this by the end of the year, and we might overestimate that, but we underestimate how much we can accomplish with just daily, consistent, dedicated growth.
Mm. So I heard you once say a bowl of cereal can solve lots of problems. And you haven't, and I can, and to me, I don't know. I would, before speaking to you, I could, that would sound crazy, but knowing that you have 7 children makes me think that you would have, that would be some wisdom that you would want to share about that.
Oh, well, yeah. The nice thing about a bowl of cereal is how many different things it can do, right? Because it can be a fantastic breakfast. Sometimes, honestly, a bowl of cereal is dinner, and sometimes, you know, uh, it's sometimes it's dinner because we say, look, we are so busy, we're not going to be able to uh like sit down to a big family meal, and so everybody, you're kind of on your own, and some kids say, okay, if I'm on my own, I'm going to have a bowl of cereal.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
for
I would be
me,
that guy. I would be that kid. I would be that kid to say, I'll take the bowl of cereal, Fruit Loops, right?
yeah, yeah, for me, strangely too, a bowl of cereal is one of my greatest nemesis, because oftentimes in my efforts to eat more healthy, I'll do really good all day long, but honestly, like a bowl of cereal at 9:30 at night, for whatever reason, like I just find myself coming down, going into the kitchen. I know I should just go put on my pajamas, brush my teeth, and go to bed, but instead I go into the kitchen, I grab some cereal, and I 2 or 3 bowls of cereal later, it seems like I'm like, man. And it's interesting because we do that in our lives a lot. We kind of push and we make progress, and we we start to get momentum going, and as soon as we start to get some momentum going, we sometimes engage in behaviors contrary to the momentum, because it's a weird, but it seems like biologically, for some reason, we almost inadvertently undermine our own momentum.
Hmm.
And so for me, it's always a reminder that while I am striving for consistency, I'm not going to kill myself over perfection. That
Yeah, I
every
like
once in a
that.
while, I'm just going to have a 9:30 bowl of cereal. I know I shouldn't. I know it's contrary to the overall goal. But when I have a 9:30 bowl of cereal, I say, okay, I had a 9:30 bowl of cereal. Let's not have a 9:34 bowls of cereal, and let's not have a 9:30 bowl of cereal every day for a month. Let's just
Hmm.
acknowledge, like, yep, I'm going to trip up every once in a while. And then the next day, I'm going to say, you know what? That's all right. I'm going to do better. Because the contrary mental approach to that is to say, I had a 9:30 bowl of cereal. So one of two things. I might as well have four, because I've already messed up today. So I might as well just blow
Hmm.
the whole thing. I mean, we
Yeah.
do that so often. We think, well, I've already made a mistake, so to heck with it. I'm just going to
Hmm.
quit.
Right.
It's not going to get you any closer. Or then we just decide, like, well, this is useless. It's no good. I might as well just, right. We make some small progress. We slip up a little bit and we say, see, I can never do it. I can never be consistent. I can never
Mhm.
achieve what I want, and we allow
And
ourselves this
and I
negative
think I think
self-talk.
that I think that goes back to what you were saying about being present, and um, if you make a mistake and you're on a diet and you're trying to keep the sugar away, cereal's full of sugar, and
Yeah.
I have those moments. I'm like, just be present to what's going on. Instead of feeling guilty about eating the
Yeah.
cereal, be present and just enjoy the cereal, and give yourself a break. And to me, I don't want the second and third or fourth, maybe the second, maybe not the third and the fourth bowl of cereal, because I'm not eating now to because of the guilt of the first bowl of
Yeah.
cereal, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what trips us up sometimes is that we're eating because we want want something that may be good for us, and then now I'm compensating for the guilt that I feel about because
Yeah.
I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do instead of just being present to it and then just enjoying the experience of okay, I'm going to give myself this thing that I want right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That drive for perfection trips us up. And if we find ourselves falling short of perfection, we oftentimes will, yeah. And I love that. I hadn't thought of that, that it has to do with being present, right? Because pretty soon we're not present. We're projecting backwards to any past failures, and we're
Mm-hmm.
projecting forward saying all these past failures and this one moment of slip up,
Weakness. Mm-hmm.
yeah, is going to project forward to more future failure. But if you just bring it down and said, no, it's just one bowl of cereal, it's like 400
Mm-hmm.
calories, you can overcome that. uh
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things that I had to actually yesterday I was supposed to go out and run or whatever, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna do that. And I didn't beat myself up. I just laid in my bed. I just enjoyed every single moment of just sitting there dozing in and out, and I was just loving every single moment of it.
Yeah.
And after I finish this conversation, I'm gonna go and run. So
Hmm.
it's just I just give myself the break of don't beat yourself up about it. Be present to what you're doing right now, and tomorrow you'll do it.
Yeah.
And of course I won't feel like it, but I know I'm going to do it because it's I don't have the weight of the guilt of not doing it yesterday on my back. 'Cause I didn't
Mm.
go through that process yesterday. And if I
Yeah.
probably would have, then I would have like, oh, now I messed up, and now I'm holding that weight, and now it's stopping me from moving forward the next day. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so it's
That's so
definitely
good.
a valuable lesson in learning that. So one final question about why did you decide to become a personal coach?
uh yeah, that is a good question. um I think for me, it's the um what I have found for myself in my life is anytime I'm feeling personally down, the
Hmm.
fastest way I can combat that is by doing something for someone else. And so I find that when I'm talking with someone, when I'm interacting with them and they're talking about some of the challenges they're facing in their life or their business, and we're working it through, and they're coming up with a plan, and then I follow up with them on, okay, how did it go? How are you doing? How's that habit coming? Are you feeling happier? Are you feeling like your life is headed in a better direction? Boy, it really lifts my own spirits. And so I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a slightly selfish endeavor to say that, man, when I'm helping somebody else, when I'm seeing them successful, when I'm seeing them achieve things, it helps me in my own mental and emotional state. And it makes me feel like, man, I'm contributing, I'm having a positive impact in the world, and I'm doing something that will have some kind of lasting and growing value. Because when we feel negative, it's usually a contracting mental process of contracting in on ourselves and feeling in on ourselves. And when we can expand out and find ways to contribute and give to others, it tends to expand us and expand our capacity for positive feelings. So, probably a bit
Yeah.
of a selfish approach to feeling good about myself by trying to
Yeah,
find
yes,
ways
definitely.
to
Coaching is a
help
win-win. I'm a
others.
coach too, and I think it's a win-win situation because you just
Yeah.
feel like, you know, like you said, you feel like you're contributing. And what's the use of gaining all this knowledge
Yeah.
just to keep it for yourself? At some point, you're like, okay, I gathered enough information about, and bump my head enough where I can help someone else maybe bump their head less,
Yeah.
you know? So I think to me, I think anytime I meet a coach, even the answer may be a little bit different, but what I think they're ultimately saying is I want to help people make a little bit less mistakes than I did,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there
That's true.
anything else you want to mention before we go? So your
Yeah.
podcast and how to listen
Oh,
to
sure.
it.
Yeah. If you, you can go check out the Happily Ever Habits podcast. You can find that pretty much everywhere you get podcasts, wherever you listen to this one. My website is thejasonharwood.com. You can sign up for my newsletter and to get the Happily Ever Habits guide. For me, that's made all the difference. Identify some core character traits, some areas where you say, I want to be better as a human in this area. And
Hmm.
then first question is, what's the smallest possible thing to do? And just start doing that smallest thing consistently. And you'll find that developing your core character will bring greater happiness than most efforts we make to acquire something or to, you know, have more or to get more. When we strive to become more, we become happier.
Yeah. That's great, man. Great. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yes. So, definitely great, man. I thank you for being on the show,
Yeah,
and I'm definitely trying to take that in terms of, you know, what you said was key to me was um, tiny goals. I mean, tiny habits lead to big goals, or lofty goals. I like that,
yeah,
you know, because to me that's something I never thought about before. I know I'm thinking about lofty goals, and so it means everything has to be big. No, you can, you know, you have a lofty big goal, but the habits that's required to be make that consistent doesn't have to be lofty. And
yeah,
you know what? It is all relative because you're thinking that 1 mile, and then 1 mile leads to 4 or 5 or 6 miles.
yeah,
Really, that's relative because that 5 miles may be still considered small in considering, you know, the 26 mile that you're working your way up to. So
yeah.
that's been very helpful. So I definitely appreciate that. That's a definite nugget I'm going to take with me.